Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augment Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I am your host as usual, and obviously, welcome back to the show. Today's episode 80 of the show. Obviously, I am doing this episode on the day of because of today's topic. We're talking about CES 2020, and more specifically, we're talking about what has happened so far because CES is still ongoing at the time of this recording. Obviously, today is the 8th, so it's still going. And there's a lot of interesting stuff going on, and I primarily say this because normally you guys already know how I do the show. I always record on Tuesday and then obviously post it on Wednesday. However, due to all the recent news that was shown off on Tuesday, aka yesterday, I decided to hold off a bit and just watch more of the content because there was a lot of stuff still coming out that was being shown off and it was very interesting. And I really hope that any of y'all that are interested in tech, I would consider looking at, look at CES, because a lot of popular tech YouTubers, I know they're already doing all their coverage and they're doing all their stuff. And yeah, we're going to get a lot of, I think all of our YouTube feeds are going to be spammed a little bit, but, and I'm just going to give my take because there's something specifically that I'm very interested in. So I'm not going to talk about everything because I would probably be taking like 2+ hours doing this. But I do want to highlight some specific things that interest me the most. And obviously this is so far, so things are subject to change, clearly, because there could be more stuff that interests me. And I'll just post about it on my media pages. But for now, I'm going to talk about a few things. So, starting off with it, let's start off with the one that I alluded to in the last episode, which was talking about upcoming tech. So, in that episode, I talked about the Samsung Galaxy S10 Lite and Note 10 Lite because they were just shown off. And obviously, people got hands-on with them. Still not everything confirmed about them. There's still some things we don't know, like pricing and availability, which is the main thing because it's a key in identifying what these things are supposed to do. But we do have some details, and we're going to be talking about them. So, I'm going to run down the cameras very quickly on both because, everyone already talks about them, so there's not really any specific thing. But there is one thing I will give my thoughts on a little bit because it makes sense. And so we're going to go with the S10 Lite. So the S10 Lite and the Note 10 Lite. But I'm going to start with the S10 Lite. So it has 3 cameras. We're working with a macro sensor, a 5 megapixel macro sensor at f2.4, a main sensor, that's a wide sensor, at 48 megapixels at f.2, and an ultra wide sensor, 12 megapixels at f2.2. And the main thing about the main sensor, obviously besides it being 48 megapixels, is the feature that's on it, that Samsung's new flagship feature that they're adding into the phones this year, is the Super Steady OIS AF. What does that mean? So, based on what we were told, that this feature is going to be able to help differentiate or show improvements in camera quality for the main sensor, that they want to specifically improve the main sensor because a lot of people have noticed that when we go from the S8 to the S9 and the S10, the camera quality stays the same. Like, it hasn't really changed. It's still good, but it's still not different. It's not improved, So with this feature, Samsung is claiming that it will be able to increase the quality of stills coming from the main sensor, and obviously increasing the main sensor itself is going to help increase quality. The only thing, and I'm not the only one that has this opinion, is that why would they show it in the S10 Lite first, Like, why would you put it in this, I don't know if they want to call it budget or mid-range option, you want to put this new flagship feature on it, but I think it's just an easy way to introduce it to the market. Going from there, we can go into the specs, which I've already shown these off, but I'll just run down it. So 6.7 inch full HD display, 6 to 8 gigabytes of RAM, 4500 milliamp hour battery, a Snapdragon 855, and a 32 megapixel selfie camera at f2.2. Going on to the Note 10 Lite, we have again 3 cameras. Instead of a macro sensor, we have a telephoto sensor at 12 megapixels at f2.4 aperture. We have a main sensor, again wide, at 12 megapixels at f1.7. And an ultra-wide sensor, again, same one, 12 megapixels at f2.2. Specs is a 6.7-inch Full HD display, 6 to 8 gigabytes of RAM, 4500 milliamp hour battery, an Exynos processor, which, very interesting, and has 32 megapixel selfie camera. I just like saying the megapixel part because I know Juan says it and it's funny, but I digress. So what catches me a little bit off guard is the whole that the Note 10 Plus is going to, or the Note 10 Lite is going to have the Exynos processor. And if you guys don't know what the Exynos processor is, the Exynos processors are the ones that Samsung make in-house. So, the same way that Huawei makes the Kirin processors, the same way Apple makes the A-series chips, same thing, same jazz. It just catches me very surprising, especially we don't know the availability. Because if this is available in the US, specifically the Note 10 Lite, it's going to be weird to have the Exynos processor, But I digress. Overall, that's what we know so far. We don't really know much more about these phones because, like I said, the main thing we care about is pricing and availability, which we will know on February the 11th because when they showed off these phones, they also announced the Galaxy Unpacked event, which is where we'll also be seeing the Galaxy S11 or 20, depending on the rumors, because the rumors say that it could be either one. But my prediction with these phones is that they are definitely going to be the mid-range options for sure. Is that it? But it's also weird because you make the S10e, and then you have the S10 Lite, and the S10 Lite seems to be better than the E. So it's gonna be weird, Like, I'm interested to see what Samsung does. Like, that's my opinion. I want to see what they do, and I'll wait till they have pricing and availability, and I'll give my more thoughts on them. I just think that these will probably be mid-range options to compete with stuff like the Pixel 3a or the iPhone 11 and etc. But I think depending on the pricing of this, it also makes sense for the Asian market. So for countries like India, China, etc., etc. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do from there, Going from there, I want to talk briefly about the OnePlus Concept 1. And this one, there's not really much to talk about in this one besides like it being a concept, but the concept that they showed off is very interesting, Specifically, as you guys all know, OnePlus, they're an up and coming brand, which I can't keep saying that, but it's actually true. Like, they're still growing, but they're very interesting in how they present themselves. Like, they want to present themselves as a cool brand, so obviously they have a special partnership with McLaren, and obviously they made the OnePlus 7 Pro, the 7T Pro 5G, the McLaren edition on T-Mobile, and then they made this concept phone, which is basically the same phone. It's just with more McLaren aesthetics, so the stitched orange leather, and obviously the special glass they used to hide the cameras, because that's the nice little party trick they're doing. And what's really interesting about this is what the glass is. So obviously, none of us, I'm assuming if you listen to my show, you're probably not cruising around in a McLaren, but I don't either. But there's a special, I'd say, the sunroof inside of the McLaren cars that use this thing called the electrochromatic glass. And what that does is, it obviously hides the glass, it dims it or, hides it. And what's interesting is how OnePlus was able to take that glass technology and then shrink it down to fit inside of a camera bump. Well, it's not even a bump. They actually just made it all like flat, so it actually is not a bump anymore. Keep in mind, this is why it's a concept. And it hides the glass, but it also serves as a way to help with the camera, to help improve camera quality. And to me, it's interesting that OnePlus was able to do this, because clearly that's a very, very difficult task to take technology that's meant for sunroofs and shrink them down to that tiny size, and obviously for one thin piece of glass as well. It's not an easy feat. Clearly it's not. I applaud OnePlus's engineers for figuring it out. Now, keep in mind, this is also a concept, so this isn't something that's going to, come to the market per se, because that's what CES is all about, is showing concepts or showing, ideas and, see how people react, But I do applaud OnePlus for doing this. I think it's very cool, very neat party trick, and the fact that it also has benefits to camera quality as well. Man, who knows? We might see this in a future OnePlus phone, and it might help improve camera quality, because as we all know, for OnePlus phones, camera quality is always the most lacking part, And I think, to me, it'd be pretty cool to see, but we just have to wait and see. Obviously, this is a concept. This isn't something that's guaranteed to come, because it might not even come to mass market, so we just have to go with that. And from there, we can go to my personal favorite, my MVP, which is the Ryzen processors. But not just any Ryzen processors. AMD showed off their 4000 series processors, the U and H series. Now, granted, keep in mind that I said U and H, so these are not the desktop ones. I do not believe we will see the 4000 series for actual desktops this year. Probably not, because there's still a lot to do with the 3000 series, because the processors are incredible. Like, they're just insane. But the 4000 series in laptops is definitely a good move, because that's the one area where AMD has always been struggling in, is laptops, and specifically performance in laptops, because as you guys all know, if you guys had a Surface Book 3, well, not Surface Book 3, the Surface Laptop 3, my bad, many people noted that the Ryzen processors inside those laptops were very underpowered. Very, very underpowered. And it's not even funny that the Intel just stomped them out completely, and most people just bought the Intel versions. So that's why the 4000 series came out, because they're like, okay, we have to improve these processors. And the way they started off is by making it a 7 nanometer chip. All of them are 7 nanometers, but they also gave a good option by putting 8 cores and 16 thread inside laptops now. That's pretty crazy. So let's start with the U series, because the U series are the ones for the ultra thin laptops, so ultrabooks. So we have 4 here. We have 4 categories. Obviously, we have the more affordable one, which is the Ryzen 3 4300U at 4 cores, 4 threads, base clock of 2.7 up to 3.7. And then we have the Ryzen 5 4500U with 6 cores, 6 threads at base clock of 2.3, boost up to 4.0. And then we have the Ryzen 5 4600U, which is 6 cores, 12 threads, which is very impressive, at 2.1 gigahertz base up to 4.0. Then we have the big boys, which are the Ryzen 7 4700U at 8 cores, 8 threads, very impressive, at 2.0 gigahertz, boost up to 4.1. And then the big daddy itself at the Ryzen 7 4800U with 8 cores, 16 threads, base clock of 1.8 up to boost up to 4.2. And then we have, from there, we also have, and then obviously right after they show these, they talk about the single thread performance, and these are in direct comparison with the new i7 1065G7 processors. Sorry. And so they talk about the single thread performance and obviously they show like the whole bar graph showing and performance increase. Single thread when Cinebench R21T, we're looking at a 4% increase. This is using the Ryzen 7 4800U in comparison to the i7. Multi-thread performance, we definitely see a big increase to 90% gain in comparison to the i7. And then in terms of graphic performance and 3D Mark Time Spy, we have a 28% increase. Obviously, as we go through all these numbers, I want to keep you level-headed and remind yourselves that these are numbers that they showed off. We still have to see these things in real-world performance to confirm if these are actually true, because if these performance gains are accurate, then we have a very interesting competition for laptops this year, to be honest. But I digress. So when we go into core count for creative performance, this is for, because most creators like ultra books. Talks about the video transcode and handbrake. We see a 40% increase. In video editing in Adobe Premiere, we see a 49% increase. In home design and chief architect, we see a 45% increase. And then digital content creation in PC Mark 10 DCC, we see a 27% increase. So very, very nice performance gains, clearly. They also do a breakdown in regards to power efficiency, because that's what AMD seems to be doing with the 3rd gen Ryzen, is power efficiency, and that's how they're able to get more juice out of these suckers. Obviously, in comparison, they show a relative performance per watt. So they show the first gen, which is 14 nanometer processor, the second gen, which was 12, and then the third gen is 7. And we see a 2% increase from the second gen to third gen, or actually 2 times increase. Sorry. And they obviously show the majority of the gains, about 80% of the gains that they're saying is from the 7 nanometer process. And obviously 20% is due to the IPC and design improvements, is what they're claiming. Now we can move on to the H series. These are the ones that are for more desktop caliber performance for gamers and content creators. So we have 2 processors here in the H series. We have the Ryzen 7 4800H. This is the big boy at 8 cores, 16 threads, base clock of base clock of 2.9, boost up to 4.2. And then we have the Ryzen 5 4600H, 6 cores, 12 threads, base of 3.0, goes up to 4. Very, very nice, especially because 8 core, 16 threads on a gaming / content creation laptop, very, very nice. And because of these gains, they actually are able to do comparisons with the desktop processor, and they actually outperform it. Obviously, like I said, we still need to test this to be accurate, so just take these numbers with a grain of salt. They compare it with the i7 9750H processor, which is 6 core, 12 threads, and then they compare it with the desktop, which is the i7 9700K. From the i7 9700 series to the i7 9700K, it's a 36% increase, and then overall increase from the Intel i7 9750H to the Ryzen 7 4800H, we see a 46% increase. So very, very nice increase. The numbers are a little bit different when we go to gaming, because that was the creation performance, and then in gaming we see a 26% increase from the desktop version to the a 26% increase from the mobile version, the 9750H, to the 9700K. And then overall, the Ryzen 7 4800H is 39% increase from the 9750H, and obviously 13% difference from the desktop version. From there, we can now talk about the mobile performance leadership slide that they talked about, where they showed how it outperforms the 9750H. And then when we go to 4K to 1080p video encoding in Adobe Premiere, it's a 25% increase. 3D graphics modeling in POV-Ray is 32%. And image rendering in Blender Classroom is 31% gain. And audio encoding from Lame MP3 encoder, we see 27%. So definitely AMD out here throwing some heaters. When I showed this off on my Instagram page, a lot of people hit me up about it, and I was like, yeah, it's definitely crazy. I'm excited to see how these processors turn out, because obviously 8 core 16 threads in a laptop, very, very impressive. 7 nanometers as well, so more power efficient, so better battery life should be expected. But that wasn't the only thing AMD showed. AMD also showed off if I'm being honest here and I'm not being mean, if you've been living under a rock, you should have known this was coming, that they obviously finally unveiled the 5600 XT, or the 5600 line. And this is AMD's counter to the 1660 Super and 1660 Ti. This is their counter to those cards. And they call it the ultimate 1080p gaming. So obviously it's competing with those two cards at a good price of $279, so obviously fairly priced. But it's going to be interesting though, because they call it the ultimate 1080p gaming. Obviously the VRAM is 6 gigabytes of VRAM, because normally most people, if you're running your games at 1080p at high settings, normally you don't need more than 6 gigs of RAM, or VRAM obviously. Personally, still not for me. I play a lot of 1080p gaming. As you guys know, I primarily just focus on 1080p gaming and high frame rates, which is why I have a 2060 Super. That I personally consider the 2060 Super definitely the ultimate 1080p card for sure for me from NVIDIA. And it's also because it has a lot of VRAM, great ports, good clocks. And they're gonna also do 1440p incredibly well, as you know, it's definitely interesting, But I think at that price point, it's definitely going to be competitive with the 1660 Super and the 1660 Ti. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, But I think it was a good idea to release that card, even though we knew it was coming. And it just comes down to the driver updates and things like that, because that's the main problem people have been having with the new AMD Radeon cards, is that drivers are a little bit annoying sometimes and stuff like that. But overall, I think AMD had a really good showing. Intel didn't really show much besides more, talk about Project Athena and stuff like that. But overall, definitely AMD, really excited to see what they do this year. A lot of people are kind of annoyed that they didn't say anything about Zen 3 architecture, which I'm like, it makes no sense for them to do anything of Zen 3 at this point. Like, Zen 2 is still new. Like, it's still very powerful. It's still ahead of the competition. And I think AMD is making the right call by focusing on laptops first. Because focusing on the laptops first is a good way to get more market share for sure. I think it's definitely the smartest idea AMD has made so far, is to focus on the laptops this year. I think that's a great idea. Next on the list is NVIDIA, which, of course, they had to be on here. The main thing to talk about NVIDIA is them just showing off a 360 hertz G-Sync monitor. The first ones to do it, obviously. My personal opinion is it's weird that they decided to go at this rate, because most of I know it's CSGO and Overwatch, they cap at 300 frames per second. So having a 360 hertz monitor, I don't know. I think it's really redundant, to be honest, because I think it's pretty redundant. I think even at 144 hertz, you already get definitely a big increase from 60 hertz, and then 240 hertz, My personal opinion is that I don't see the benefit of them doing at 360 hertz personally. Like, I just don't. Like, that's my opinion. Some people might get mad at my opinion. I just don't see the benefit to it. Like, I get some pro gamers would probably get it. Like, that's just me. Like, I just don't see the gains of it. Like, even from 144 hertz to 240, I don't know. I think it's still a little bit hard to tell the difference for me, but I think that's just me. But, you guys can let me know what you think. I'm not too excited. I think it's nice that they did it, but I think they just did it just for the sake of doing it. Not really, just not really much to do. So, going from there, we can talk about Sony, because Sony did something very interesting. They started the press conference with PlayStation. They showed off the PS5 logo and then left. Yeah. I wish I was making this up. I really wish I was making this up. No, that's legit what they did. And yeah, we're just gonna go with it, because why not? Because why not? I think that's just crazy that they just show off the logo, and then, then leave. But anyways, another big thing that got Sony a lot of headlines recently during CES was them unveiling a concept car, an electric concept car called the Vision S. Definitely interesting, to say the least. It doesn't look bad. It looks really good, actually. It actually is not ugly. It actually looks pretty cool. Like, obviously, this is a concept car. Like, I'm still weirded out that Sony would decide to make a concept electric car. Like, it's crazy. Like, it looks better than at least it looks better than the Cybertruck, I'll say that. But I think it just came out of left field. But obviously that's what CES is about, is just showing off concept, like showing off cool stuff that probably will never hit the market. And I think this is just a cool thing to show off. Like, I'm interested to see what Sony does if they actually decide to go in this direction. I don't think they'll be personally making the car, but it's interesting, to say the least. From there, we could talk about the last thing that I actually have on my list, is the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Fold. So you're probably asking yourselves, Josh, the heck is this? And let me explain. many people know the Lenovo ThinkPad laptops. I personally like the ThinkPads. I think they're definitely one of the better Windows machines, especially the Extreme X1 Carbons. I love those things. And I just love the Lenovo, creator laptops because they're just amazing pieces of hardware. But we also have to keep in mind that, Lenovo likes to do some interesting things. And that's obviously what we got here. So, the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Fold is a foldable laptop. I know some people are saying, wait, foldable laptop, can't you already open and close these things, normally? And, can't these things already do that? But no, this is literally just one big piece of glass, like one computer that folds right down the middle. But I think it's a smart idea. Obviously this thing is definitely not going to be cheap because these are the specs that we have so far. We're looking at a 13.3-inch OLED foldable display, Intel Core processors with Intel Hybrid technology, 8 gigabytes of RAM, up to 1 terabyte NVMe. It's going to be running Windows 10 Pro. They advertise up to 11 hours of battery life. And then obviously weighs about 2.2 pounds. And it will come out in 2020, mid-2020. So this thing is coming. It is coming. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do, because I like it. I personally like it. I think it's cool. Personally, I think it's pretty badass. That's what I think. But, that's me. They also showed the price. So this thing is not going to be cheap. Clearly it's not. It's going to start at $2,499. I get why a lot of people are like, this is crazy. I don't know why Lenovo would do this, but this is the whole point of CES, is showing off crazy stuff. And my only concern, and I share the same concern with Michael Fisher, aka Mr. Mobile, is to see how Windows operates with this hardware, Because I know obviously they're going to make a new version of Windows called Windows X, which is going to work with foldable phones and, or foldable electronics in general. That they're working on Windows X. And the fact that it's still a little bit buggy, and I think they'll probably work out some of the kinks, because this thing is coming. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do, I'm excited. I like this. I like this. If I had bread, if I genuinely had just bread lying around to throw, I would probably get one of these things. I want to see how it actually handles in the real life. I want to see how people are able to work with this sucker because it's gonna be crazy. I think it's a nice thing, especially when you look at it. It's folded and the accessories that come with it. It looks elegant, very, very elegant. I like what Lenovo did here. But overall, that is everything that I actually found very interesting so far about CES. Keep in mind, this is why I say this episode is really about what's happened so far and not really focusing on the whole event because, I don't pay attention to everything. I know if you really want to pay attention about every single thing, I would recommend you go look at other content creators that are, posting all their videos about it. And, but these were the few things that definitely caught my eye the most. But let me know what you guys think, let me know what you guys think. I always like talking to you guys about this stuff. I always love having a good discussion, But to make a quick little segue, today is January the 8th. In 3 days, we will be celebrating the 1-year anniversary of this show. It's definitely surreal and crazy to think about that I've been doing this for an entire year. And I couldn't have asked for anything better, because it's been an incredible journey. I've loved every single second of doing this, and I'm still doing it. So this isn't goodbye, but obviously I won't be making an episode on the 11th. The episode will be saved for next week when we celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the show and do the 1-year special. I'm thankful for all of you guys for your constant support and just coming back and listening and just hearing me grow and, you just get to share with you guys what I've but I love talking about, but I like talking about on a regular basis with anybody that's willing to listen, And I just thank you guys so much for it. I thank you guys for all the love and support for this past year, and that we just keep growing and the show keeps going on, bro. I've talked to some incredible people in my first year, and I'm excited to see what happens this year, But again, thank you guys so much for your time. I love you guys to death. Have yourselves a wonderful week. I hope you guys take care. Please be safe. Don't do anything dumb. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys. Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.